My name is Laverne, and the night I found that second phone, my whole body went cold before my mind could catch up. It was sitting in my palm like a snake I'd picked up by mistake, cheap black plastic, a little cracked at the corner, the kind of phone you buy when you don't want nobody looking too close. The screen lit up with one new message, bright in the dark of my car, parked behind the fellowship hall. Can't wait to feel you again, my king. Don't make me wait too long. Face blowing a kiss. If you're watching this right now, maybe you've had that moment too. The one where your stomach drops, your ears start ringing, and you know life just split into before and after. If anything I say sounds like your story, tell me in the comments so I know I'm not alone. And if this finds you washing dishes late at night or folding laundry trying to swallow your own hurt, go on and like this video and subscribe so we can walk through these storms together. Because trust me, baby, this storm was a long time coming. I am 72 years old. I live on a quiet little street in Birmingham, Alabama, in a red brick house my husband, Harold, and I bought back when gas was 49 cents and we thought love was enough to carry everything. Our mornings had a rhythm I could almost hum. The kettle would whistle, while the old clock over the stove ticked loud in the silence. I'd feel the worn lino under my house shoes as I shuffled to the sink. The kitchen smelled like coffee and lemon dish soap, and sometimes like the bacon my doctor told me to stop cooking, but I still fried on Saturdays. Harold's footsteps always started slow. 1, 2, 1, 2. Down the hallway, his slippers dragging just a little more each year. He'd clear his throat before he came in, like the kitchen needed an introduction. "Morning, Vern," he'd say, voice rough from sleep. And I'd hand him his coffee, 2 sugars, no cream, just the way he liked, the way he'd liked for 50 years. His fingers would brush mine just for a second. We used to linger on that touch. Lately, it had become something else, habit, more than hunger. We met when I was 22 and he was 25, at a church picnic not so different from the one where everything later fell apart. I'd been holding a plate of potato salad, nervous in a yellow dress my mama said made me look like sunshine. He'd walked up in a white shirt and too much cologne, grinning like he had all the time in the world. "You look like trouble," he'd said. "I'm the kind of trouble that makes you go to bed on time," I'd shot back. He'd laughed that big, deep laugh that used to roll right through my chest. I fell in love with that laugh before I fell in love with anything else. We built a life out of ordinary days. 2 children. Sleepless nights with sick babies. Bills paid late but paid. Fried chicken on Sundays after service. Football games with the sound low. And the kids on the floor. We fought, sure. 2 strong people sharing one life are bound to knock elbows. But we always circled back to each other, always found our way to that same old couch, his arm around me, my head on his chest. For a long time, our bedroom was a place of whispered laughter and warm skin and the soft creak of the mattress springs. I don't have to paint you a picture. Grown folks know. Intimacy was how we spoke when words were too small. And then one night, that language went quiet. I remember it because the fan was ticking overhead and it was too hot even with the window cracked. The street smelled like cut grass and somebody's barbecue. I'd reached for him, like I always did, hand on his chest, fingers tracing that little scar from when he fell off his bike as a boy. He caught my wrist gently, not rough, just firm. "Nah, Vern," he'd murmured, turning onto his side, facing the wall. "I'm too old for all that now." At first, I laughed, thinking he was playing. "Too old? Harold, stop it. You ain't that old." "I'm serious," he said. His shoulders stiffened. My back hurt, my knees hurt, my blood pressure up. I'm done with that. We ain't kids no more." Silence settled between us, thick as humidity. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the fan tick and the distant bark of a dog down the street. "Harold," I whispered eventually, I'm not asking you to run a marathon. I said I'm done, Laverne. He snapped, sharper than he'd meant to, I think. Then, quieter. It's not you. It's just old age. Let it go. So, I tried. I told myself it was normal. All the women at church joked about their husbands falling asleep in the recliner at 6 p.m., snoring louder than the TV. Bodies change. Time takes things. Maybe this was just one more thing it had taken. I bought softer nightgowns, then baggier ones. I stopped lingering in front of the mirror at night. When I turned off the light, I lay as still as I could so my hand wouldn't accidentally brush against him, so he wouldn't feel guilty. But the thing about a woman's heart is, it keeps noticing even when you tell it to hush. It was little things at first. He started taking more care with his clothes on Sundays. Not for me. Not anymore. I'd watch him in the mirror, tightening his tie, smoothing his eyebrows with those same rough fingers that used to smooth my hair. You got a girlfriend at church? I teased one morning, trying to keep my voice light. He chuckled, but he couldn't meet my eyes. Just because I'm old don't mean I gotta be raggedy, he said. He began staying late after Deacon's meetings. The first time, it was an extra half hour, then an hour, then 2. I'd sit in the living room with the TV on low, the glow of it flickering against the photo wall, our wedding picture, the kids with gap-toothed smiles, our grandbaby, Jalen, in his little cap and gown from kindergarten. The clock over the fireplace would click each second into my chest. When he finally came in, always smelling like outside, and that same cheap aftershave, he'd kiss the top of my head and drop his keys in the bowl by the door. Y'all have a revival in there? I asked once. Pastor talked too much, that's all, he said, kicking off his shoes without looking at me. Our daughter, Tanya, noticed it too. The Sunday she came over with Jalen and a pan of macaroni and cheese that tasted almost as good as mine. Daddy got a new walk, she joked, watching him pull into the driveway through the sheer curtains. Who he trying to impress, walking all upright like that? I swatted her arm, but my eyes stayed on him. He did look different. A little spring in his step. A new hat I hadn't seen before. And he was singing to himself when he came in, under his breath. Hey, baby girl, he said to Tanya, kissing her cheek. He barely glanced my way. At church, there were more small things. A young woman joined the choir around that time. Maybe late 30s, early 40s. Pretty, with smooth brown skin, big hoop earrings, and curls that bounced when she laughed. She always wore bright colors, hot pink, emerald green, electric blue, and her heels clicked sharp on the fellowship hall floor. Her name was Brielle, but the girls in the choir called her Brie. Sister Brie, that dress is too tight for the Lord. I heard one of the older mothers mutter under her breath one Sunday, not quiet enough. They laughed, but there was truth in it. Harold laughed a little too loud at her jokes. She'd touch his arm when she talked, just 2 fingers on his sleeve, but those fingers stayed there a beat too long. When she walked up the aisle past our pew, I saw his eyes follow her a little lower than her face. Deacon Harold, she'd say, smiling wide enough to show all her teeth, you just keep this church running. And he'd puff his chest out like a rooster. Just doing the Lord's work, he'd answer, voice a little deeper. Every time she called him Deacon, something in me clenched. Not because of the title, but because of the honey in her tone. It was the way I used to say his name when we were young and foolish and alone. I tried to tell myself I was being paranoid. Jealousy can make a woman see shadows where there ain't nothing but light. I'd been faithful to that man through babies and bills, through layoffs and late-night arguments. He'd been faithful to me. That's what I believed. That's what I needed to believe. We were old. Old people don't cheat, I told myself. They just forget things, like where they put their glasses or why they walked into a room. But then he started forgetting his phone. Not the little one I found later. His regular one. The one I paid the bill for every month. He'd go to the grocery store and leave it sitting right there on the counter, screen dark, face down. "You forgot your phone." I'd call out, picking it up. "I don't need that thing," he'd say from the door, not reaching for it. "Everybody I need to talk to know where I'm at." And when it did ring and I handed it to him, he'd look at the screen a half-second too long before answering, as if deciding who he was supposed to be in that moment. "Hey," he'd say, all casual, walking into the other room. The door would close behind him with a soft click. Little things. Just little things. Until the day they weren't little anymore. That afternoon, the air was thick and wet, like the clouds couldn't decide whether to rain or just sit on our shoulders. The magnolia tree in the front yard dropped big, white blossoms that smelled sweet and rotting at the same time. Harold had gone over to the church to help pastor with some men's ministry stuff, he'd said. I had a pan of cornbread cooling on the stove and an hour before Bible study. I decided I'd do something nice for him, something small. He loved his truck. Lord knows he treated that old gray pickup better than he treated some people. So I grabbed a trash bag, some Armor All wipes, and my little handheld vacuum and went outside. The truck door creaked when I opened it, and the smell of him hit me, stale coffee, peppermint mints, and that sharp aftershave. The seat was worn where his body sat, molded to his shape. There was dust in the cup holders, receipts on the floor, a stray French fry hard as a rock under the seat. I swear, this man is a grown child, I muttered, climbing in. I hummed while I worked, some old Al Green song we used to dance to in the living room. I scooped up napkins, candy wrappers, a church bulletin or two. My knees complained when I bent down to reach under the seat, but I was stubborn. I didn't like halfway cleaning. My fingers brushed something hard, not the rough rubber of the floor mat.
Thin, cool,
tucked way back. I pulled, and out it came, a phone. Not his phone. Not the nice, big smartphone with the cracked corner I knew. This was smaller, older. No case. Just black plastic, scuffed on the sides like it had slid across concrete more than once. For a minute, my brain didn't understand what my hand was holding. It felt like when you reach into a purse expecting your keys and pull out a fork instead. I sat back on my heels, breath caught somewhere higher than my lungs. No one needs two phones. A voice in my head whispered. Not a 75-year-old retiree with arthritis and high blood pressure. Laverne, stop it. I told myself out loud. It could be anything. It could be Jalen's. Could be some old thing he forgot. The phone was off. I pressed the side button. Nothing. I held it down longer, and the screen flickered, then glowed a dull blue as it started up. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my gums. When the home screen finally appeared, a little chime sounded, different from the one I knew. In the top corner, the battery icon showed just enough juice. A cheap wallpaper of some beach, all pixelated. And then, before I could even figure out how to open anything, it buzzed in my hand. One new message, the notification said. From Angel Choir Musical Notes. I tapped it with a finger that didn't feel like mine. Can't wait to feel you again, my king. Don't make me wait too long. Face blowing a kiss. The world narrowed to that one line. The quiet of the street outside grew loud. The buzz of a lawnmower 2 houses down, the bark of the neighbor's dog, the distant rumble of a train. They all pressed against my ears like someone had turned the volume up on life. My king. At 75 years old, my husband, who told me 4 years ago he was too old to touch me, who rolled away from me at night like my body was a chore, was somebody's king. I scrolled, fingers clumsy, breath shallow. The messages stacked up like tiny knives. Last night was everything. You still got it, old man's smirking face. Don't forget the picnic this Sunday. I'll bring that peach cobbler you like, and maybe something sweeter later.
Delete these.
You know your wife ain't stupid. There were pictures. Nothing too explicit, but suggestive enough. A bare shoulder, a glimpse of lace, a red mouth pursed in a kiss toward the camera. I didn't need to see her whole face to know. I already knew.
Bree.
Sister Bree from the choir. The one with the laugh like wind chimes and the dresses the older mothers clucked their tongues at. The one who called him Deacon Harold like a hymn. My hand shook. The phone slipped from my grasp and hit the floorboard with a thud that didn't match the weight it had in my world. 50 years. Babies. Miscarriages. Night shifts. Funeral flowers. Mortgage payments. I'd stood beside that man when his daddy died, when his brother went to prison, when he broke his ankle and cried like a child from the pain. I had watched him fade and grumble and get softer in the middle and harder in his habits, and I had still loved him. I had made peace with empty evenings and quiet nights. I had told myself this was just what old age love looked like. Meanwhile, he was parking his truck in motel lots and letting some choir girl call him king. For a long time, I just sat there, the vacuum cleaner still humming against the seat where I'd left it, the bag of trash crinkling under my knee. I don't know how long passed. Long enough for the sun to shift, for shadows to move across the dashboard. Long enough for my tears to dry sticky on my cheeks. Eventually, I reached down, picked up that phone, and slid it into my apron pocket. If he could keep secrets, so could I. That evening, I fried chicken. Not because I wanted to, the smell of hot grease made me nauseous, but because that was our routine on Bible study nights. Fried chicken. Make rice. Warm some green beans from the weekend. Act like the world was still on its axis. The oil popped and hissed in the skillet, tiny burns kissing my wrist. The kitchen filled with the smell of seasoned flour and pepper. The clock over the stove ticked, slow and steady. His truck pulled into the driveway, right on time. I heard the door, the familiar jangle of keys in the bowl. "Smells good in here," he called out. I swallowed, wiped my hands on the towel, and turned. He stood in the doorway like always, same old Harold. Gray at the temples, shoulders a little stooped, stomach soft under his polo shirt. But now, when I looked at him, I saw that phone in my mind, those messages, that little red kiss emoji. "Dinner in 5 minutes," I said. My voice sounded almost normal. That scared me. He washed his hands at the sink, humming under his breath. Some gospel song Bree had led on Sunday. We sat down at the table, the same table we'd bought used when Tanya was a baby. The wood was nicked where the kids had banged forks and schoolbooks. I'd polished it 1,000 times. I'd set plates for birthdays and anniversaries and arguments at this table. He bit into the chicken, closed his eyes, and smiled. "You still got the magic touch, Vern," he said, licking his fingers. My stomach twisted. "Harold," I said quietly, laying my fork down. "Where's your phone?" He frowned, chewing. "My phone? In my pocket, I guess." "Why?" "The other one," I said. For a second, everything stopped. His jaw froze mid-chew. The tick of the clock got louder. Somewhere outside, a siren wailed and faded. "The other one," he repeated. I reached into my apron and set the little black phone down between us, right on the tablecloth, next to the salt and pepper. The screen lit up like it knew it had been caught. He stared at it, then at me. "Where'd you get that?" His voice was low, dangerous. "From under the seat of your truck," I said. "I was cleaning it for you, trying to be nice." He swallowed, but it sounded hard. He reached for the phone, but I put my hand over it. "Don't," I said. For the first time in a long time, he really looked at me. Not past me, not through me, at me. My eyes. My face. "Laverne," he began, "it ain't what you think." I laughed, a short sound that didn't feel like mine. You better hope it is what I think. Because what I think is that my 75-year-old husband been lying to me and sneaking around with some woman from church. If it's worse than that, I don't even want to know. He opened his mouth, closed it. His knuckles were white where he gripped his fork. She just needed somebody to talk to, he said finally. That's all. Her marriage. Her marriage. I cut him off. Oh, so now you a counselor? That what they teaching in men's ministry? How to counsel younger women in motel rooms. His face reddened. You been going through my messages? I found a phone in my truck. I countered. In my house. Paid for with my money. That ain't your messages. That's evidence. We stared at each other, 50 years of history stretching tight between us like a rope. She makes me feel young, he said at last, the words slipping out small, like he didn't mean to say them. My chest burned. And I make you feel what? Old? Invisible. He looked down at his plate. A bit of chicken skin clung to his lip. It took everything in me not to reach out and wipe it away. Laverne, you don't understand, he muttered. You been different. Ever since the kids left. Always fussing. Always talking about your stories and your shows. I walk in, and it's like I'm just furniture in the room. A bitter laugh bubbled up in me. I changed? You the one who turned his back to me in bed and said he was too old for intimacy. Remember that? Or you forgot like you forget your phone. I got health issues, he shot back. My back, my knees. But not too many issues to be somebody's king, I said softly. His eyes flicked up, shocked. Yeah, I whispered. I read that part. Silence.
Thick. Heavy.
He pushed his plate away. The fork scraped against the ceramic. A harsh, ugly sound. You gone tell the kids? He asked, voice flat. Should I? Asked back. He rubbed his forehead with his fingertips, eyes closed. For the first time, he looked old to me. Not just older than before. Old. Tired.
Small.
I messed up, he said. I know I did. But, Vern, we got 50 years in. You gone throw that away over some texting? Some foolishness. Texting. Foolishness. My mind went back to those messages, to that red kiss, to motel mentions, and last night. That wasn't just texting. That was him handing pieces of our life to somebody who hadn't earned them. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, I said honestly. But I know this. I'm not the fool you've been taking me for. We finished that meal in silence. The chicken got cold on our plates. The clock ticked on. Somewhere in the distance, thunder growled. That night, he slept in the bed beside me like always. But there was an ocean between us, and I was the only one who felt like she was drowning. I could have blown everything up right then. Called Tanya, crying into the phone. Called Pastor Lewis, told him his deacon was a hypocrite. Walked up to Bree after choir practice and snatched the earrings out her ears. The old me, well, the younger me, might have done some of that. I used to have a temper that came up quick like summer rain, then dried just as fast. Age had smoothed some of those edges, but it hadn't dulled my memory. Instead, I did something Harold never imagined I could do. I waited, and I watched. Over the next week, I kept that little phone charged and close. When he went to shower, I'd open it and scroll. More messages, more foolishness. You coming Sunday, right? I'll wear that blue dress you like. The one you said make me look like water. You know your wife don't appreciate you like I do. She's stuck in the past. Every time I read something, my heart broke a little more. But it also hardened in places that had been soft too long.
He thought I was stupid.
He thought old age had dimmed my eyes and dulled my wits. He forgot who he married. One afternoon, my neighbor and oldest friend, Denise, came over with a basket of peaches from her cousin's yard. We sat at my kitchen table, peeling fruit and letting the skins curl into little red snakes in the bowl. "You look thin around the eyes, girl," she said, studying me. "What's going on?" I hesitated. The blade of my paring knife slid slick along the peach, juice sticky on my fingers. "Denise," I whispered, "you ever find something you wish you never saw?" She put her knife down. The kitchen fan whirred overhead, pushing warm air around. "What did that man do?" she asked, already knowing the answer. I told her. Not every dirty detail, but enough. The second phone. The messages.
Bree.
The king foolishness. She listened without interrupting, hands folded, eyes on my face. When I finished, she leaned back and let out a low whistle. "Men don't retire from being selfish, do they?" she said. "They just find cheaper phones." I laughed, even though nothing was funny. "You gonna leave him?" she asked gently. The question hung there heavy.
Leave.
At 72. Where would I go? This house was mine. Ours, paid off with both our sweat. My children had lives of their own. I had a bad knee, a small pension, and a pantry full of memories. "I don't know," I admitted. "All I know is I can't unknow what I know now. I can't go back to thinking he's just tired and old when really he picking and choosing where to spend his energy." Denise nodded slowly. "Then don't go back," she said. "Go forward. But go forward smart." "Smart how?" I asked. She took a peach slice, popped it into her mouth, chewed thoughtfully. "You said they meeting at the church picnic Sunday, right?" she asked. My eyes narrowed. "I didn't say meeting," I said. She waved her hand. "I know what you said, and I know what it meant. Men are predictable, Laverne. He gon' go where he feel admired. She gon' go where she feel desired. Both of them gone think they the only ones in on the secret." She leaned closer. "So you show them they wrong." Her words sank in like seeds into wet soil.
Sunday.
Church picnic. Hot dogs and praise music and folding chairs under the big oak trees. Kids running around in their church shoes. Women fanning themselves with paper fans that said, "Jesus Saves," on one side and had funeral home ads on the other. Sister Bree in some loud dress, walking like the ground was hers. Deacon Harold in his best hat, laughing too loud. "Denise," I said slowly, "you ever see one of them sting operations on TV?"
She grinned.
"Girl, I was just thinking the same thing." We plotted over peaches and coffee, two old black women at a kitchen table, calm as could be, planning to shift the axis of our little world with nothing but truth. I didn't want to hurt him the way he had hurt me. Not exactly. I wasn't looking for blood.
But I needed him to see that I saw him.
That everybody could see him if I chose. I wanted him to feel the weight of what he'd done in a place that mattered to him. For Harold, that place was the church. I'm going to pause here, baby, because this is where the story turns from quiet hurt to quiet power. If you were me, 72, 50 years into a marriage, your heart busted but your mind still clear, what would you do next? Would you burn it all down or play it cool and plan your move? Tell me in the comments what your next step would be, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the rest of this story and others like it. Denise and I talked until the peaches turned brown around the edges. We weren't loud.
We weren't dramatic.
Just two women who'd lived long enough to know that when life punches you in the gut, you don't always swing back wild. Sometimes you step aside, let the blow pass, then decide where to land yours. "You sure you want to do this at the picnic?" she asked finally, rinsing her sticky fingers in the sink. "That's where they like to play?" I said. "Seems fair that's where they start paying for it." The church picnic was on the calendar for that Sunday, had been for months. Same place as always, the field behind the church, big oak trees spreading shade over folding tables, kids running wild while their mamas shouted half-hearted warnings. I knew their plan without having to read every message. That little phone had told me enough. They'd meet, pretend nothing was going on, then slip away behind the storage shed or take a little errand together. Old folks' romance with a side of hypocrisy. I wasn't going to scream, throw plates, or swing on nobody. That wasn't my style anymore. But I was going to make it very hard for Harold to keep pretending he was two different men in two different lives. That night, when he fell asleep in his usual half-snore, I lay awake, the ceiling fan clicking above us like a metronome. The second phone rested on the nightstand on my side, screen dark, secrets humming inside it. After midnight, when his breathing got deep and regular, I reached for it. My heart thudded so loud I was sure it might wake him. I cupped the phone close, shielding it from the faint streetlight filtering through the curtains, and opened the messages. Bree had sent another one earlier that evening. I miss you. Sunday can't come fast enough. I want my king all to myself, face blowing a kiss. That word again.
King.
I rolled it around in my mind like something sour. I typed back, fingers stiff. I don't text much, but I can manage simple words. Can't stay long Sunday. Too many eyes. Meet me behind the storage shed at 3. Wear that blue dress. I almost signed it with his initial by habit, then caught myself. He wrote lazy, short. Just letters and emojis and those ridiculous pet names. I erased the extra words, made it more like him. Behind storage at 3. Blue dress. Don't be late. I hit send and slid the phone back to its spot. In the dark, Harold shifted, mumbling something I couldn't catch. I watched his back, the slope of it under the thin cotton sheet. For a moment, grief hit me so hard I had to press my fist to my mouth. This was the man who'd held my hair when I had morning sickness. The one who'd driven me to the hospital at 3 in the morning when my water broke with our son. The one who'd cried soft at his mama's funeral, his shoulders shaking as I rubbed his arm. We were both more than our worst choices. I believed that. But more than didn't mean less than. He'd done what he'd done. Now there had to be a reckoning. The next morning, Bree answered. I'll be there, smirking face, you better too. Don't make your queen beg.
Queen. King.
Two old fools playing dress-up with titles they hadn't earned. I showed the message to Denise later that day. She squinted at the screen over her reading glasses.
Good, she said.
Now we know where the snake gone slither. What if Harold don't go over there? I asked. What if he changes his mind? She shrugged. Then she's still standing there in that blue dress alone, trying to explain why she's hiding behind the shed. Either way, truth comes out. We made a simple plan. I would act like everything was normal. Fried chicken, bring potato salad, sit under the tent with the other church mothers and fan myself slow. Denise would keep an eye on Harold from a distance. At 10 minutes to 3, I'd slip away and walk toward the storage shed from behind, the long way round, where the ground sloped and the grass stayed a little damp. What happened next? Well, that part I'd have to feel in the moment. I didn't want a scene. But I did want them to know I wasn't in the dark anymore. And I wanted that knowledge to live in a place that mattered to them. Not some motel far from home, but right there where they played holy. Sunday came hot and bright. The sky was a hard, unbothered blue. The air smelled like charcoal, grilled hot dogs, and spilled fruit punch. Kids screamed and laughed, water from balloon fights sparkling as it flew through the air. Somebody's speaker played old gospel hymns remixed with a little too much bass. I wore my best white dress, the one with the lace sleeves, and my softest low heels. My knees were not about to be showing out in front of the Lord and his people. I tied a blue scarf around my head that used to match Harold's old tie. Funny, the things you think about when your life is cracking. When we pulled into the church lot, he was humming. Not a hymn. Some R&B song from the 70s we used to slow dance to. I almost told him to turn his foolish joy down, but I bit my tongue. He carried the cooler like always, chest out, greeting folks left and right. Deacon Harold, one of the brothers, called. "We need you on the grill, man. You the only one, don't burn the chicken." He laughed, loud and hearty. I'm coming. Y'all just don't know how to watch a flame." I set the potato salad on the food table under the tent and hugged a few ladies. The sun pressed on us hard, but the big oak trees gave enough shade to keep us all from melting. Flies buzzed around the dessert table, where somebody had already laid out peach cobbler in aluminum pans. And there she was.
Bree.
She wore a blue dress just like I'd asked. Deep, royal blue that hugged her hips and dipped low at the neckline. She had on silver sandals that made little flashes when she walked, and her curls were pinned up with just enough pieces falling to look careless, the kind of careless that takes time in the mirror. She saw Harold and smiled slow, a little secret in it. I watched his face. He tried to keep it neutral, but his shoulders squared, and his eyes lit up that half-wit more. "Lord, give me strength," I whispered under my breath. Denise slipped up beside me, pressing a paper fan into my hand. On one side was a picture of Jesus with a lamb. On the other, an ad for a funeral home with clouds and doves. "You ready?" she murmured. "As I'm gone be," I answered. We waited. I watched the kids run relay races. I laughed when little Jalen tripped and rolled in the grass, came up grinning with green stains on his knees. I fixed plates and refilled cups. Anybody looking at me saw exactly what I wanted them to. Laverne doing what she always did, keeping things moving, making sure everybody else was fed. Inside, my nerves hummed like bees. At 2:50, I saw Harold check his watch. Just a quick glance, hardly anything. But I knew that watch. I bought it for him on our 40th anniversary. That watch had been in our bedroom drawer for years, pulled out for special occasions. Lately, he wore it every Sunday. He wiped his hands on a paper towel, said something to the brother next to him at the grill, and stepped away, picking up his hat from the table. Bree was on the other side of the field, talking to some of the younger women. She threw her head back at something one of them said, laughing, then drifted off, almost casual, like she didn't want to be seen going anywhere in particular. Denise's hand brushed mine. That was our signal. I set my cup down, smoothed my dress, and walked. The grass whispered under my shoes. Away from the tents, the sun hit harder. The storage shed sat near the back fence, a squat, ugly thing with peeling paint and a padlock hanging open. The air behind it always smelled faintly of gasoline and old wood. I could hear them before I saw them. "I told you, we can't stay long," Harold's voice low, tense. "Oh, come on now." Breeze, soft and coaxing. "Can't you just hold me for a minute? I wore this dress for you." My hand tightened around the fan so hard it bent. I stepped around the corner. They were standing close, too close. Not touching yet, but close enough that breath could bridge the gap. Bree's back was to me, but I could see her hand reaching for his chest. Harold's head was bowed like he was halfway through a prayer he didn't really mean. "Don't let me interrupt," I said.
My voice was calm. It surprised even me.
Bree jumped like she'd been shocked. She whirled around, eyes wide. Up close, I could see the shimmer of her lip gloss, the little dab of highlighter on her cheekbones. She looked younger than me by a good 30 years, but in that moment, she looked like a child caught stealing. Laverne, she stammered. I was just talking to my husband behind a shed. I finished for her. In a dress you wore special for him. I know. I read the messages. Her eyes flicked to Harold, then back to me. Messages. I pulled the little black phone from my purse. It felt heavier in my hand than the fan. "This one ring, any bells?" I asked. Harold stepped forward, his face dark. Laverne, put that away. This ain't your business. I cut in. Last I checked, my marriage is my business. My body that you told was too old. My heart you've been stepping on in motel rooms. I figure I got a right to be here. Bree's face changed then. The fear didn't disappear, but something else slid in behind it. Pride, maybe. Or entitlement. You hacking his phone now, she snapped. That's a crime, you know. So is adultery, I replied softly. Even if the law stopped caring, God still got his opinion. For a few seconds, we stood there, three people in a triangle of truth. The noise of the picnic drifted around the corner. Children laughing, someone calling for more ice, the faint crackle of meat on the grill. You told me y'all weren't together like that anymore, Bree said suddenly, turning on Harold. You said it was just a companionship thing, that she didn't even want you no more. The words hit me like a shove. Harold flinched. Bree, Is that what he told you? I asked, my voice shaking now even though I tried to hold it steady. That I didn't want him? She shrugged, folding her arms. You always looking mad. He said you just nag him and watch your shows and shut him out. He said he felt invisible in his own house. I cooked for that man, washed his clothes, sat by his hospital bed when they ran tests on his heart. I said, the words coming faster. I reached for him in the dark, and he rolled away. And then he went and found a woman half my age to tell him he was still a man. My throat burned. I swallowed hard and forced myself to look straight at Harold. You could have told me you were lonely, I said. You could have told me you felt old and scared and useless. We could have figured it out together. Instead, you put your ring in your pocket and your lies in a burner phone. His shoulders slumped. I didn't want to hurt you, he muttered weak. I had to laugh at that. It came out raw, ugly. You didn't want to hurt me? Baby, you set my whole world on fire and then say you didn't mean to burn the house down. Footsteps sounded behind us. Denise cleared her throat. Everything all right back here? She called, too loud to be casual. Behind her, I could see Pastor Lewis's wife, Sister Elaine, hovering a few feet away, concerned. Another couple of church members lingered at the edge of sight, curiosity pulling them closer like gravity. This wasn't exactly how I'd pictured it. I'd meant to keep it contained, a little circle of truth tucked away. But secrets don't like to stay small. They leak. Harold straightened a bit, seeing other eyes. Let's go home and talk about this, he hissed at me low. Ain't no need to make a scene. Ain't it funny? I said quietly. How men call it a scene when the woman finally walks onto the stage they built. I turned to Denise.
We're fine, I said.
Just cleaning up a little mess. Bree's lips pressed tight. I don't need this, she snapped, stepping back. I didn't sign up for all this drama. Well, I said, that's what happens when you join somebody else's marriage. You don't get to pick your scenes. She glared at Harold. You told me you was gonna handle this, she hissed. You said she was old and tired, and y'all were basically roommates. Bree, stop, he pleaded, glancing nervously toward the sound of people shifting just out of sight. That stung worse than any curse. Roommates, I repeated, tasting the word. That what we are to you now, Harold? He couldn't answer. For a moment, I imagined slapping him, not just for the cheating but for the disrespect of it, for shrinking me down in someone else's eyes, making me out like some bitter old woman collecting dust in a corner while he went out and played hero. But I didn't raise my hand. I raised my chin. I'm going back to the picnic, I said. I ain't leaving my church field just 'cause y'all decided to turn it into your little hiding spot. I turned to Bree. You can stay or you can go, I added. But you can't be who you've been. Not around me. Not around my husband. Not in my face. She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue. Then she must have seen something in mine because she shut it again. Her eyes flicked to the people behind Denise, realizing how many had seen, heard, or could sense enough to start talking. Church folks don't need much to build a story. A raised voice. A blue dress in the wrong corner of the yard. A second phone. "I'm leaving," she muttered, stepping around us. "I didn't come here for this." She walked away fast, her sandals kicking up little puffs of dust. Harold reached for my arm. "Laverne." I stepped back. "Don't you touch me," I said. I walked out from behind that shed into the sunlight, my heart pounding, my hands shaking, but my back straight. The conversations under the tent dimmed for a second when people saw my face. Or maybe that was just in my mind. Either way, I went straight to the drink table, poured myself some lemonade, and took a long, slow sip. Denise stayed near, a steady presence. She didn't need to say anything. Her being there was enough. A few minutes later, Harold came back around, sweat on his forehead, his hat in his hands instead of on his head. His smile looked pasted on. "You all right, Deacon?" one of the brothers asked. "Hot back there," he said. "That's all." But he didn't look at me for the rest of the afternoon. We went home together in name only. He drove. I stared out the window at streets I'd known longer than I'd known my own figure in the mirror. Little boys on bikes, old men on porches, women carrying grocery bags with their shoulders squared against the weight. When we got inside, I took off my shoes and went straight to the bedroom. He followed, hovering in the doorway like the threshold was a line he wasn't sure he could cross anymore. "You had to do that there?" he asked, his voice a mix of anger and shame. "In front of everybody?" "I didn't raise my voice," I said. "I didn't call nobody out by name. They saw what they saw 'cause you went where you went. Don't put that on me." He sank down on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, hands hanging between them. "I'm sorry," he said finally, barely audible. I sat in my chair by the window, the one where I read my Bible and watched the neighborhood. The late afternoon light slanted in, warm and unforgiving. "For what?" I asked. He looked up, confused. "What you mean, for what?" "I mean be specific," I said. "You sorry I found out? Sorry you got caught? Sorry your little fantasy got interrupted? Or you sorry for how you broke your vows and my heart?" He swallowed. The Adam's apple in his throat bobbed like it might choke him. "I'm sorry I let it get that far," he managed. "I'm sorry I made you feel less than. You not. You never been. I felt old. She made me feel like I still had something to offer." "And I didn't?" I asked quietly. He closed his eyes. "It ain't about you," he murmured. "It was about me. My pride. My fear. I was scared of disappearing. So you made me disappear instead," I said. We sat in that heavy silence, two old people with too many years behind us and not enough ahead to waste on lies. "I'm not ready to decide what happens to this marriage yet," I said eventually. "But I know something's gone change starting tonight." He looked up, wary. "First," I said, "you sleeping in the guest room. I don't care how old you are or ain't. You don't get to lay your head beside me like nothing's wrong." His shoulders sagged. He didn't argue. "Second, that little phone? Mine now. I'm taking it to Pastor Lewis. He need to know what his deacon been doing so he can decide if he's still fit to be up on that pulpit." Alarm flashed across his face. "Laverne, please don't. You embarrassed about that?" I cut in. "Good.
Hold on to that.
It might keep you from doing something worse." "Church is all I got," he whispered. I felt a flicker of pity. Then I remembered the messages about motel rooms and last night. Pity had to share the room with anger now. "You should have thought about that when you was behind that shed," I said. He didn't make a sound. Third, I added, we telling the kids. Together. I'm not carrying this alone, and I'm not having them think I left you or changed toward you for no reason if that's where this ends up. He flinched at that. Left you? Like the words were physical. You leaving me? He asked, voice raw. I don't know, I said honestly. Part of me wants to. Part of me remembers who you've been for most of these 50 years and don't want to throw that man away because this one showed up. I'm still talking to God about it. A tear slipped down his cheek. I hadn't seen him cry in years. Not like that, anyway. Not for us. I'll do whatever it takes, he said. Counseling. Stepping down from the board. Changing my number. Whatever you say. You ain't doing it for me, I replied. You doing it because you need to look at yourself in the mirror and recognize the man staring back. I already know who I am. He nodded slowly. Who are you? He asked, like he was scared of the answer. I'm Laverne, I said. The woman who held you down for 50 years. The woman you thought was too old to want. The woman you thought was too blind to see. I stood up, knees popping, and went to the dresser. I pulled out the extra pillows and a set of sheets and handed them to him. Guest room down the hall, I said. You remember the way. He took them without argument and walked out, his slippers sounding loud on the hardwood. That night, my bed felt strange without the shape of him in it. I won't lie to you and say I slept easy, alone and proud. I cried into my pillow, quietly, so the walls didn't hear. But somewhere between midnight and dawn, a calm came over me. Not happiness. Not yet. Just a steady, quiet knowing. I hadn't burned the house down, but I had finally walked into my own living room and turned on the light. 2 weeks later, we sat in Pastor Lewis's office, side by side but not touching. The room smelled like old books and coffee, the air conditioner humming in the corner louder than it needed to. The little black phone lay on the desk between us, like a witness. Pastor Lewis leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled under his chin. He was younger than us by a good 10, 15 years, but the last decade had put some gray at his temples and some weight in his size. I appreciate you bringing this to me, Sister Laverne, he said. Both of you. I didn't have much choice, Harold muttered. I shot him a look. You had a choice, I said. You just made the wrong ones for a while. Pastor Lewis glanced between us. Marriage is a covenant, he said slowly. But so is the position of deacon in this church. When a man falls short in one, it affects the other. Harold's hands clenched on his knees. So, what that mean? He asked softly. It means, Pastor said, that for a season you need to step down. From the board, from public leadership. You need to sit, listen, heal, and work on your house before you try to help with God's. Harold nodded, eyes wet. Yes, sir, he whispered. And you, Sister Bree has already, he cleared his throat, choosing his words carefully, decided to attend elsewhere for a while. I spoke to her. She has her own repentance to walk through. A little knot I didn't know I'd been holding loosened. I didn't wish her evil, but I needed her gone from my line of sight. As for your marriage, Pastor continued, looking at me now, I can't tell you what to do there. That's between you, your husband, and the Lord. I can recommend counseling. I can pray. But I won't stand here and tell you to just forgive and forget like it didn't happen. That wouldn't be fair to you. I blinked. I'd half expected him to say, stand by your man and think of your vows and all the other things folks throw at women when they don't want to look at men's mess. His measured words cracked something tight in my chest. Thank you, Pastor, I said quietly. On the way home, Harold was silent. No humming. No radio. Just the sound of the turn signal clicking and the tires rolling over familiar potholes. At home, we called the kids. Tanya came first, face tight, eyes sharp. She sat in the same chair where I did my Bible reading, legs crossed, one foot bouncing like a metronome of impatience. Our son, Michael, arrived an hour later, smelling like office air and cologne, his tie loosened, jaw clenched. When we told them, when Harold, to his credit, didn't dance around it but said, "I've been unfaithful to your mother," the room felt like it shrank. Tanya's face crumpled first. "Daddy," she whispered, tears spilling. "How you gonna do mama like that? After all this time?" Michael didn't cry. His anger looked different. Cold. He stood up, paced, wiped a hand over his face. "I'm disappointed," he said finally, voice tight. "I looked up to you. I'm 48 years old, and I still looked up to you. You know how stupid that makes me feel right now." Harold bowed his head. "I deserve that," he muttered. They turned to me then, both of them, like I held the key to the rest of their lives. "You leaving him?" Tanya asked. "I don't know yet," I said, honest. "Right now, I'm just trying to breathe." I made him move into the guest room. "We talked to Pastor. He's stepping down at church. We might try counseling." "You better not stay just 'cause you think we need y'all together," Michael said, jaw still tight. We groan. "We'll be fine. You do what's right for you." His words warmed something in me and made me ache all at once. My babies, grown enough to tell me to protect myself. "I ain't staying for y'all," I said. "I'm staying for me, at least for now, to see if the man I married is still in there under all that foolishness. But if he don't show up, I won't waste what years I got left waiting for him." Harold looked up at me then, really looked like he understood that this was not a threat. It was a boundary. And over the next months, I watched him. He went to counseling both with me and alone. He read books about aging and masculinity and marriage that I never thought he'd touch. He stopped using "too old" as an excuse for anything but not climbing on the roof anymore. Sometimes we sat at the kitchen table and talked about things we'd never said out loud. About how losing his job before retirement made him feel like half a man. About how my world had shrunk to grandbabies and TV dramas because I'd forgotten who I was when I wasn't taking care of somebody else. He cried more than once, his big old hands shaking on the table. I cried too. Healing ain't neat. It comes in waves, and some of them knock you flat. We didn't just snap back to before. There's no going back when trust breaks like glass. You can glue the pieces, but if you look close, the cracks are still there. Intimacy didn't return overnight. I didn't magically become some movie version of myself, all silk robes and coy smiles at 72. Some nights, I still turned my back and held my own hand, but slowly, small things shifted. He left notes on the counter. Nothing fancy. Just "Coffee's ready. You looked pretty in that blue dress yesterday." Or, "Thank you for not giving up on my hard-headed self." He started sitting next to me on the couch again instead of in his recliner across the room. Just sitting. Not reaching. Not demanding anything. Sometimes our shoulders touched, and neither of us moved away. We took walks around the block together when his knees allowed it, talking about everything and nothing, the neighbor's new dog, the price of eggs, the sermon from Sunday. I joined a senior women's exercise class at the community center with Denise. We did slow stretches to old Motown songs, laughing when our bodies creaked. I made some new friends, women with stories that made mine seem both smaller and less lonely. One day, Jalen came over with his school project, a family tree. He needed old photos, names, dates. We spread them out on the table, wedding pictures, baby pictures, Thanksgiving dinners. 50 years of us in glossy rectangles. "Y'all been together a long time," he said innocently, tracing a line from me to Harold with his pencil. "Yes," I said. "We have." I didn't tell him that our line had almost snapped. That right in the middle of that tree, a storm had come through, that some branches were still bent. But I looked at Harold then, and for the first time in a long while, I saw not just the man who'd hurt me, but also the man who'd held my hand in all those pictures. Both could be true. Both were true. I had every right to leave. I still do. Any day I decide these changes ain't enough. But I also had the right to stay on my own terms, with my eyes open, my boundaries clear, and my dignity intact. One night, months after the picnic, I went to bed and found the guest room empty. I found Harold in the hallway, blanket under his arm, eyes uncertain. "What you doing?" I asked. "I didn't want to assume nothing," he said. "But I wanted to ask if I could come home. To the bed. Just to sleep. That's all. If you say no, I'll go right back." I stood there a long moment, feeling the softness of the carpet under my feet, the weight of his question hanging between us. "On one condition," I said. He swallowed. "Anything." "You don't ever tell me you too old to hold me," I replied. "Even if you can't do nothing else, you can hold my hand. You hear me?" His eyes filled. "Yes, ma'am," he murmured. "All right then," I said, stepping aside. He slid into the bed like a guest in a sacred place. We lay there, not touching at first, just sharing the same space. After a while, I felt his fingers inch toward mine under the covers, slow and unsure. I let them find me. Our hands laced together, old skin, new promise. We lay like that, listening to the fan tick overhead, the clock on the dresser mark each second we chose to keep trying. I didn't know how our story would end, but I knew this chapter belonged to me as much as it did to him. I knew I wasn't invisible. I knew I was still a woman, still worthy of being wanted, not just for my body, but for my heart, my mind, my history. And I knew that if he ever forgot that again, I was strong enough to walk away. If you've stayed with me this far, thank you. Maybe you're sitting in your own kitchen right now, staring at a phone you wish you'd never found. Maybe you're lying next to somebody who turned their back on you and told you your years make you less desirable, less worthy, less anything. Let me tell you plain, age doesn't make you less. It makes you more layered, more precious, more deserving of truth. I chose to stay for now because I saw real repentance and real change. Not just flowers and sorries, but quiet consistency when nobody was watching. That was my path. But staying is not more holy than leaving. The holiest thing you can do is honor the woman God made you to be. So I want to ask you, if you were in my shoes, would you have stayed and fought for the marriage, or packed your bags and saved your peace? What would dignity look like for you? Tell me in the comments. Your story might help another woman find her courage. And if this story touched you, helped you, or just kept you company for a little while, go on and like this video, subscribe, and share it with somebody who might need to hear that it's never too late to choose yourself. I'm Laverne, and I'm still learning that even after 50 years, you're allowed to rewrite the ending.